Our guest today is Gene Simmons. As you may know, he is a rock legend. He's an entrepreneur and a pop culture icon. After immigrating to the United States as a child, he drew inspiration from his Holocaust survivor mother, fueling a relentless drive that shaped his career. In 1973, he co-founded the rock band Kiss, known for theatrical stage shows, iconic face paint, and innovative branding and marketing. Under his leadership, Kiss has grown into a global empire, dominating both merchandise and the wider marketing landscape. Beyond his fire-breathing onstage persona, Gene is a hands-on businessman, he's a TV personality, and a family man. Celebrating 5 decades in the spotlight and embarking on a new tour at some point, he remains an influential figure in music, entrepreneurship, and pop culture. Gene, it's an honor. Welcome to the show.
I feel much better about myself. I didn't realize I did all that stuff.
Yeah, and actually, it's pretty interesting. When I was preparing for this one, I was really looking forward to it because if anybody looks into your history and your life story, you'll realize what a fascinating life and career you've had, Gene. Like, that's the truth, right? You've worn many hats over the years beyond music, right? As we mentioned, you're an entrepreneur, you're a businessman, you're a marketing powerhouse for sure, and you're a media personality. So, like I said, I was looking forward to this because I want to get some context for the discussion because, your backstory, I think, sheds some light on the bigger picture of the Gene Simmons, biography and success story. Like, from what I understand, you were born in Israel, right? You moved to the United States at a young age, and you spoke very little English, if I read that correctly.
None at all.
None.
I spoke 3 other languages.
Mm-hmm.
Came to America, learned how to speak English the way broadcasters do. Because I noticed in New York, the people that I heard English spoken didn't dress the best or didn't live the best life. The guys on TV who always had suits and ties, they were, so they sounded sort of like this. And, hey, man, you going you're going to the club tonight? Like all the different, my brother Bob was going in Long Island. So all the different sounds of the English or American language didn't appeal to me because the representation of that didn't sound like what I wanted to do. So I mimicked the broadcaster. I get crucified every once in a while. What are you doing? Would you like to order a sandwich? Yes, I'd like a little bit of mayo. And what are you doing? Reading the weather on TV? Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Well, it's interesting because you're very articulate. You look amazing. You look amazing. So tell us what the early years were like when you first moved to the United States. Like, what was the influence there? What influenced your drive, your sense of identity that eventually formed the path into music and entrepreneurship? Like, who is the young Gene Simmons?
My mother was everything to me. My father left when I was about 6.5 or 7. And I'm the only child for my mother, and she's a survivor of Germany's Nazi concentration camps. At 14, our entire family was tortured and destroyed during the camps. And my mother, on her own, she got married, I was born, had to earn a living, raised me, did all that. And she has always been my moral compass. And I happen to have a mother who didn't suffer fools lightly. There was no time for excuses or anything. Every day above ground is a good day. Shut up, stop complaining, go out and do it. Sort of what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Mm-hmm. She's with me even now. She lived to be 94 years of age.
Wow.
And never really heard her complain about the body politic or what's going on in the world or everything, because you have to understand, my mother came from a time when the entire world was at war, where 100 million people died miserably. Mm-hmm. And when I go into the adjacent room here, I've got photos of my mother all over the place. I am a mama's boy and will continue to be as long as I live. I've never met a wiser person. And my mother was not well educated. She spoke with a thick Hungarian accent. Hello, how is the orchestra? Mom, it's a band. Yes, that's right. So, and yet wisdom, I don't think, is what's taught in schools. You have to understand the big idea of life, because we're all just passing through. And through her wisdom is where I got my drive, ambition, and all the rest. And then the rest is just hard work.
Yeah. It's interesting when the role of family in personal history, right? Forging a strong work ethic in many cases. Like, can you think of the most important lessons you learned from your mother that still guide you today? I mean, you did talk about, being grateful for being above ground. Is there anything else that stands out as an important lesson that you learned from her?
It was actually through my mother's eyes that I was 8.5. We came to America and I couldn't speak a word of English. And I'll never forget at night in those days, we had a television set. I never heard of television where we came from. I think we may have had a radio, that's it. And at night, television would go off the air at around 11:30 or 12 o'clock midnight. We only had 3 channels back in the day. And at night, before it went dark, it went to black and white kind of fuzz like that. And right before, the American flag would be billowing in front of the TV set in black and white, and you'd hear ba-da-da-da-da. And my mother would let me stay up every once in a while because I had to get up school and all that. Mm-hmm. And my mother used to cry when that was going on. And I was a little kid. I'd look up and, like, what's the problem and all that. And my mother, she would shush me. So I didn't understand. And it was many, many years later that I finally figured out that my mother was crying tears of joy that she finally came to a country where people weren't trying to kill her and me just because of our religion. Mm-hmm. Americans take that for granted. Oh, yeah, we have the freedom of speech. We have the freedom of that. No, you don't understand. You don't understand that to people, first generation legal immigrants, because there is a difference, are the most patriotic people you will ever meet. Mm-hmm. The rich guy that was once poor appreciates riches much more because he was once poor. Yeah, so it was my mother that made me understand the greatness of America, despite its racist tendencies and they're bad people and all that stuff. At least here you've got a shot. Mm-hmm. You've got a shot at a better life. And I'm living proof of the American dream.
Right. Well, that's interesting. The American dream, like, I guess you're explaining what that phrase means to you personally. Do you still think it's alive for the younger generations?
It's better than ever. Mm-hmm. There are political problems. There always are. Mm-hmm. Your former prime minister, who I was a big fan of, grew unpopular because of certain decisions or whatever. And the current president, who I knew before he became president, when he wasn't a political person, he's now president a second time. And there are going to be a lot of things people disagree with and all this kind of stuff. But this is the best of times. Relative to what? Relative to not too long ago, the entire planet was at war with each other. So there are now small wars, relatively small wars, and it's heartbreaking. Mm-hmm. But we do have the UN and the people on the other side of each other, the nuclear powers, do talk with each other. And the savior of mankind, I'm convinced, is not going to be politics, but commerce. Capitalism is the savior. Because before sword rattling happens, China, Russia, and America realize they have to coexist because of money.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? It's wild now because, like, the world has gotten so much smaller, when you think about how we're connected. We can see what's happening in Russia. We can see what's happening in China.
This is a weird interview. You know that.
Why? Why is it weird?
I mean, special, because usually people want to know, so what songs are you going to play and what was it like being in KISS and everything. We're talking about the body politic, which is fine, by the way.
We like to go a little bit deep on this. I mean, people have gotten emotional on this show. I mean, I like to look at it a little bit more cerebrally, if that's a word. Actually, gymnasium is one of those words that I throw out there when when I'm trying to impress someone, is gymnasium. That's funny you brought that up. It may have been from you that I heard that word. But it is an interesting time. And, the crazy thing is when we think about the history of the last, 100 years, it wasn't that long ago the world was at war. It wasn't that long ago. Like, it really wasn't. Like, I think, what was the stat I saw? We're closer to 1935 than we are to 2065 or whatever. It's just an interesting thought. It wasn't that long ago. But yeah, it's an interesting time. The world is a lot smaller. Like I said, you are an articulate guy. You're well spoken, very well educated. Like I said, I do a deep dive on the guests before the shows, and I've read some of the things you've written, and I've read or watched some of the interviews, and you're very well spoken about this stuff. So I like to get your take and your perception on some of these things. But I do want to talk about music. Actually, I do want to talk about music. But before we talk about Kiss specifically, I do want to ask about your foundation and your musical influences. Like I know you experimented with several bands and musical styles before Kiss. So I wanted to ask you, like, what were your earliest music influences? Like, what were you listening to growing up, and what drew you to rock music eventually?
My mother and I arrived in America in 1958, and the first music I heard at 8.5 years of age was Chuck Berry. Chuck Berry, Fats Domino, Little Richard, and I'm proud to say I knew Little Richard and introduced him to my son Nick and all that. And that black music then, which bears no resemblance to rap or anything today, and was the cornerstone of what became rock and roll and all that. And strangely, even before I understood English as a language, I remember hearing Chuck Berry, might have been Roll Over Beethoven, and as an 8.5-year-old kid, sort of moving up and down. The music made me move. I didn't understand the words, but something about the pumping nature of music. And strangely, life is what happens to you while you're busy making your so important plans. Former Gene Simmons band, I had a different lineup a few years ago. We were playing in town in a place, and the next morning I was about to leave town and heard that Chuck Berry's funeral was going to take place in the same theater that we played in. And I had to go, to pay my respects without Chuck and his guitar. And I was in the back and it was packed. But no, McCartney wasn't there. Keith Richards wasn't there. All the people who should have been there to pay homage, as the French say, were not there. And which is close to fromage, but it's a different word. And I'm in the back, just, sort of thinking about how strange it is that a 8.5-year-old boy, myself, and now so many years later, here I am at the funeral with an open casket and everything. And a gentleman walks up and says, "I'm with the Berry family, Chuck Berry's family, and would you mind getting up on stage and saying a few words?" I didn't plan on anything. Wow. So I'm the one who gave Chuck Berry's eulogy, and it was very emotional for me. In fact, you can Google and schmoogle it. YouTube, I guess, put up Gene Simmons eulogy, Chuck Berry. Yeah. And it took me back to, life is a strange thing, this journey. We're all passing through it. And seeing those words in front of now deceased Chuck Berry with the open casket, emotionally overwhelming. I remember that. Was that your question?
It was, and I appreciate you sharing that very much. Man, life is interesting, isn't it? When it comes full circle, you remember coming to America, being influenced at 8 years old by Chuck Berry, and then giving his eulogy. Like you can't write this.
No. And then seeing the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show in America, people don't realize back in 1964. When the Beatles were on, the population of America was 160 million. Now it's 330 million. Fully half, 75 million people used to tune in Sunday nights and watch this show. It was by far the biggest show on television. I saw the Beatles there, and it was scientists call it a singularity. It affected me like a kick in the nuts, like, what is this? And all I remember was that the girls were screaming their heads off. I'd never seen anything like that. And then this little sparkle of this little thought bomb went off in the back of my head. Hey, maybe I should try doing that because I like that. Yeah. And, I still had a little bit of an accent. But these guys, if you talk like that, I'm going, they sound different too. And they didn't look American, and I didn't look American. There was a connection there. And it was strange. When the Beatles first played, they were the biggest thing on the planet. But in those days, concerts, they played one or two stadiums. That was it. Candlestick Park, Shea Stadium. But otherwise, they were just playing big arenas. And it was amazing. When we went to Japan, we broke the Beatles records. As a matter of fact, there were different times. But of course, the population of the world was half at that point. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
most bad. We went to Australia,
Mhm.
and one in every 14 Australians in 1980 bought Kiss stuff. One in every 14, whether it was tickets or toys and games and all that. And we were playing multiple days in stadiums back in 1980
Mhm.
and broke the Beatles records. And every time, and it was such a crazy idea that 64, I must have been 13 or 14, watching them on TV and then join a band and break the records of the guys. So I thought, maybe I should be in a band. Very strange.
It is, but we call it manifestation, maybe, whatever that definition might mean to you, something. The seed was planted, though, and I do want to unpack KISS a little bit before we move on there, but like, what eventually led to the formation of KISS? Like, where were you? What were you doing? How did KISS start exactly?
In business and in life, and I've written a few business books, there is such a thing as the right thing, and it's difficult to verbalize what that is because for different people, it's different things. But there certainly is a right thing at the right place and the right time. Mm-hmm. So we happen to have been lucky, I was, to be in New York, because if I was in Nebraska, the chances are slim to none that I would have met other people. Yeah. New York was a gathering place for a lot of creative people, economy, Wall Street, the United Nations, art, finance. It was just a gathering. Mm-hmm. And so big ideas, big people, literature, art, they all gathered in New York, not in Ypsilanti, Michigan. Nothing against Ypsilanti. That starts with the letter Y, by the way, or Sudbury, Canada.
Sudbury.
Oh, I've been there before. I'll tell you a quick story. We first went to Sudbury, and I love the place, around, I don't know, the end of 1974. And we're in a prop plane that's shaking, like a bird in the sky. And it's a prop plane because they didn't have jets, a smaller airport and all that. We're circling, and I look out, and it looks like the moon. There were just craters and all that. And I turned around and spoke to a gentleman beside me. I said, well, why does it look like that down there with the big craters? He goes, oh, that's where the American astronauts trained to be on the moon. Literally. Yeah, you can look it up.
I didn't know this. Is this true?
That's what I'm here for. So
wow.
I married a Newfie,
Yeah, I knew that. I didn't know that. Yeah.
His name's Jim. No. It's Shannon. Shannon.
Wow.
And you can't make jokes. Why? What's wrong with marrying Jim? Well, I don't want to marry Jim. You marry Jim. So we land, and the Holiday Inn was the biggest hotel at the time. It may have had 4 floors. And we get in, and of course we get stuck on the 3rd floor, and the elevator comes up halfway, so we had to climb up to get to the 3rd floor. And we settle in our rooms, and I hear noise outside, people gathering. And I look outside, and people are gathering, and there's a small river going by the Holiday Inn. And I call downstairs, what's going on? Oh, that goes on every few months and everything. I go, why? Well, the people in town like to see the water rise and then the water go down. Something about the flow of the water. And when I looked out, sure enough, the water started to rise and people started clapping.
That was it? That was their entertainment?
I just work here. I don't know.
Exciting times in Sudbury, Gene. Just the water.
We go to Newfie. There's Kissing the Screech, and every place has got its unique.
Its thing. This is true. You actually have to kiss the cod to become an honorary Newfoundlander. Is that how it goes? You have to kiss. It's a thing. Yeah. I've never been there. I've always wanted to go there. I've never been there. I really want to go though.
Stay where you're at, and I'll come where you're to. Bye. So your mouth has got a slit on the sun. And there's literally a place called Dildo.
I know this, and actually so Dildo, I have a friend whose family's from Dildo, actually, believe it or not.
I ate at the Dildo restaurant overlooking Placentia Bay, and I had a Dildo burger, and outside Captain Dildo, we had chalk marks, and you could write on the blackboard sayings or whatever, and next to Placentia Bay is Come By Chance. And on the other side is Spread Eagle. I'm not making this up.
Listen, anything's possible from there, but this is breaking news. I didn't know these places existed.
In fact, when Newfie, which was not part of Canada, until late in life, something like 1950, something like that. They had their own currency and their own militia and everything. And one of the coins is a spread eagle with an eagle spread.
Wow.
You could look it up.
This is the things you learn on a Gene Simmons interview. I mean, it's wild. I feel like Google's going to be working overtime after this one. People look at this stuff up. That's insane. So,
in fact, I lived next door. We shared the highest floor of a building in New York. My next door neighbor was Isaac Asimov, the science fiction writer and philosophy guy and everything, who created the word Google, spelled differently, which was a number of almost infinite amount to.
Right. Yeah. That's wild. I mean, what a time, to be a creative in New York. Like from what I understand, you knew Andy Warhol as well.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
There's a Truman Capote too.
Oh, wow.
There is a play and book and then movie coming out about when Warhol and Capote met and decided to do something together. And it didn't come to fruition, but the tapes exist, and that's going to be the basis of it.
What was Andy Warhol like?
The shyest person you've ever met, who a room full of celebrities, you'd have Jagger and Bianca there, and Halston, the fashion designer, whoever was there, they were all jockeying for, I guess, position or getting off on each other's celebrity. Pacino and Nureyev, the ballet guy. And Andy would be off on the side studying them. He was not inclined to really be the center of attention. Very, very interesting guy. And sad in a very real way.
Wow. Yeah, it's interesting. Like, such again, another pop culture icon. To hear.
Well, he escaped Middle America because he was different and they couldn't accept him there. In New York, they only come out at night, and at night you'd see everything.
Yeah, interesting. You and Paul Stanley.
We met, somebody introduced us and said, oh, this guy, Paul Stanley, also writes songs. By the way, at the time, he was not yet Paul Stanley and I was not yet Gene Simmons. I was Gene Klein at that point. And so I must have said something like, oh, yeah, like everybody says those things, but only the Beatles write their own songs. That sort of, there's Mount Olympus and then nobody underneath. And Paul played me something called Sunday Driver. Let me be your Sunday driver. Let me be your Monday man, which became a song called Let Me Know that we recorded on the first record. I went, wow. That's really good. You wrote that? Yeah, he did. He did not have a good impression of me. I don't think I was trying to be an asshole. I just didn't believe, well, this guy's sitting in front of me, arrogant, saying he writes songs. I write songs. But I didn't know. Yeah, but reluctantly, he got together with me, and it's been over half a century of, great times, great, amazing journey.
Yeah, that's for sure. Where did the name KISS come from? Where did that come from?
I wanted to call the band F-U-C-K. Am I allowed to say the word?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to call the band Fuck. And that's because it's one of those, high energy words. It can be used good or bad, all that stuff. So I wanted to call the first record It. F It. Second record, I wanted to call You. You. Third record, I wanted to call Me. Me. On and on and on, because I thought that was clever. And of course, the guys, especially Paul, said, we're never going to get in the racks. In those days, there were records, and you'd never get in there. And Paul turned around. He was driving the car. We were all in it. And he was saying, how about KISS? And we just stopped and went, yeah, like the kiss of death and the kiss, like kiss off and all that. Yeah, so it just came out of nowhere, out of Paul's mouth.
Just as simple as that. Really interesting. And then it became iconic, right? And the original concept for the band and the live shows and everything else, did that evolve, or was that like a concept you had right from the beginning?
Once we got the right lineup with Ace and Peter, at least initially, because they unfortunately didn't last. They were in and out of the band 3 different times. How many chances do you get in life? It's unfortunate, but when we first got together, there was this kind of, wow, we're going on an adventure. What do we want to do? With no resume, no experience, no qualification, we decided to, in essence, put together the band we never saw on stage. looked different, although we didn't know what that was. So one day we went and bought makeup and put makeup on it, and we went, whoa. And pretty much the makeup we put on is what we kept on for decades and decades. And in terms of special effects, in those days, tie-dyed T-shirts and people were looking on the ground like they were doing you a favor. The English bands were exciting, the Who and everything, but there was no show, no screens, no special effects. They just played. And we decided that wasn't enough because of what we looked like and what the songs were about and all that.
Yeah.
And it happened, you couldn't find 4 less qualified people to do what we did. We didn't have a clue what we were doing. I never heard of marketing. I didn't know what that was. But we knew enough to trademark our faces early on. And we had a manager who understood that. Yeah, so Kiss, 100 million records later and thousands and thousands of licensed products, everything from Kiss condoms to Kiss caskets. We'll get you coming and we'll get you going. See what I did there? Although I've said that joke many times. And it's been amazing. And now it's going to go even further. Pop House, last year we sold the makeup and the songs to a company called Pop House, who are now developing in the next few years, 2 years maybe, Kiss avatars. We're calling it that for now, which will blow you away. The technology that is right around the bend, around the corner, is like nothing anybody's ever experienced. And that's all I'll say about it.
Interesting. I can't wait. Can't wait to see it. I was going to ask you about like a couple specifics, like the fire breathing. Like what was the concept behind that? Like when did that start?
It just happened. We were in our manager's office and we had a song called Firehouse. And he said, I want you to meet somebody. And a guy, maybe named Amazo, something like that, came in, bald head with a goatee. And he says, let me show you how to spit fire. And he spit fire and singed the ceiling. We all went, whoa. And Bill Coyne, the manager, said, one of you guys is going to spit fire during Firehouse. We didn't know what. Okay. And he basically said, Simmons, you're going to be the guy that's going to spit fire. And sure, except for the first time I did it, New Year's Eve, 73, 74, a month before our first record came out, my hair caught fire on stage. Yeah, because it doesn't say on the spray can, when you're spraying your hair, Gene, this means you don't spray too much because you're going to go up. You're going to go up like flash powder. And I didn't know. And of course, while I was on stage on fire, the tips were on fire because it needs air. So the places where the hair was. And Rhodey comes up with a wet towel, puts it on me. And I thought it was a fan running up on stage. But the audience went bonkers. They went out of their minds. Never saw a band like this. They set themselves on fire. Wow.
Well, it's you and Michael Jackson. Same thing. I don't know if you remember that when his hair caught on fire.
In the commercial.
Yeah, the Pepsi commercial, yeah.
Hey, question, did you invent this? This was the...
No, it's not quite, that's not quite right. Okay. This has been around a long time. It's Italian in origin. The evil eye, like horns. And what I started doing was with the thumb out, and I'll explain what it was. So I'm playing with the bass, and fans in the audience were waving or standing on their seats. So I wanted to wave back. So I'm holding on to the guitar pick with the 2 middle finger while I'm playing, and I wave back. See, but I'm holding the guitar pick while I'm playing, but I've only got the 2 fingers like that. Because if I've got the guitar pick with this finger, then it doesn't, not manly enough. So they started doing that back. But in photos, I always did this because my thumb was no longer thing. And later on, are you near a computer?
I am. Yeah.
Yeah, look up Dalai Lama, and Gene Simmons.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You got him to do it.
Of course. I have presidents, leaders of country, everybody, because when I start doing it in photos, people say, well, what is that? I didn't learn it until later that it actually means in sign language, I love you. I, L, love, and you. So when you do this, in sign language, it means I love you.
Well, you and the Dalai Lama. It's an iconic picture, Gene. Yeah, listen. So we were talking about the solo tour. It's coming up, right? You said next year. What can fans expect from the solo shows now? Like, and how do they contrast with the Kiss shows? Like,
Well,
that we
I'm
love?
not going to bring the private jet or the 60-man crew or the 20
Yeah.
tractor trailers and tons of pyro. But this is much more fun in ways that I could never have fun that way in Kiss. You get to play the songs you want to hear, but also nuggets that Kiss has never played live. And also in 78, I discovered a band called Van Halen, signed them to my company, and produced 15 songs of their demo. And one of the songs, a song called House of Pain, not the same one that they recorded, was a steamroller. And they never recorded it or played it live, and I don't understand why, because it's a killer of all the Van Halen songs. And we do it live, and I tell the story about it. And as soon as it starts, 0 to 60 in a few seconds. Amazing. And everybody in our band are multi-instrumentalists. They all sing lead. I mean, most of the stuff I do. But I can literally pull up fans from the audience, and they can jump up on stage and be rock stars, join in on the fun. No rules. Just have a lot of fun.
That sounds awesome. There's also a Kiss biopic in the works for Netflix. Do I have that correct?
Currently being cast. It's pretty far along. It's going to come. It's going to come soon. There's going to be, the Kiss avatars and cartoon shows and play. You'll see. At the end of a caterpillar's life, it looks like it's all over, and then when it comes out of the cocoon, the end is really the beginning, because you sprout these beautiful wings, and yeah, you'll see.
I did want to ask you about your business savvy and entrepreneurship, because you're described as a serial entrepreneur, which is absolutely true. If you take a look at, what you've done with the Kiss brand over the years and the marketing, it's grown into a global empire. And as you've said, what can you say about entrepreneurship and business? Is this something that was it something that sparked your interest in when you created the band, or is this are you a natural born businessman?
It's unfair to say when you did this and when you did that. There is such a thing. Certainly, in my case, if I hadn't met Paul and the other guys and all that, the right thing on my own, could I have done it? No. But it also bears noting that nobody is born Walt Disney. You're not born Bill Gates or Warren Buffett. You invent yourself. And a lot of it has to do with the amount of hard work you're willing to put in. So if you go to shopgenesimmons.com, you'll see various trademarks I own. So I can do sneakers, backpacks, you name it, with logos that I own. We have a film company, Simmons Hamilton. First movie is Deep Water with Sir Ben Kingsley, Aaron Eckhart, Rennie Harlan directing, who did Die Hard. We have a second movie coming up. We have a restaurant chain called Rock and Brews, BREWS. We have 2 at Los Angeles International Airport and across America. A lot of stuff. You don't have enough time. I have sodas. Go to moneybagsodas.com. I have a vodka and a lot of stuff. And, you may want to ask yourself, if God only gave you 24 hours of life starting now, what are you going to do? Watch the ball game? Or are you going to get up off your lazy butt and do something? Try to be nice to a person, kiss a pretty girl, make some money, do something, so that at the end of your life, whenever that is, you don't have any sort of, I wish I woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Yeah.
Maybe at that point it's like, thank you and good night.
Yeah, great perspective. What advice would you give, a young musician or an aspiring entrepreneur, a creative that's looking to build a brand?
The unfortunate thing is now you almost have no chance, because fans no longer pay for music. My daughter and my son, our daughter and son, are both very successful in their own brands. Nick Simmons' music has been on Prodigal Son and Ozark, the TV shows and all that. And Sophie If you look up Sophie Simmons, she's got billboards all over Canada. She won a Juno Award, all kinds of stuff. Currently has the #1 song in Asia, K-pop person. But you can't make the money that we did, because if you download and file share all these stupid words, I mean, in my day, you pay for something. Now, download and file share and get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
And so what the creator gets is maybe 1/100th of 1 penny per download.
Mm-hmm.
So you can have 1 billion downloads and make a few $1,000s, which is insane. So new artists, it breaks my heart, barely have a
it's
chance.
tough.
Okay, final question, Gene. We were talking about life and the arc of life and how, funny how things work out there. But, what lasting impression do you want to leave on the world? What does a Gene Simmons legacy look like?
I don't care.
Okay.
When you've been as fortunate as I have, the last thing I want to hear is people in my position to complain about, I wish I would. It's like, what are you complaining about? The rest of the world says, I wish I had that. And I've heard people living in Beverly Hills whine about stuff. I call it the Beverly Hills Blues syndrome. You know what that is? Here's the Beverly Hills Blues. Ba, ba, da, da. My limo is late. Ba, ba, da, da. It's like, shut up. The rest of the world can't drive in a limo. You're complaining it's late.
Yeah.
So funny, the people that work the hardest, digging ditches, making the highways that you drive on, I don't hear anybody complaining. And they do it for money. They do it even though they don't like the job. They do it to get paid so they can feed their family and put a roof over their head. And people in the arts and Beverly Hills and all that say, no, I can't do something unless I'm passionate about it. The rest of the world doesn't talk like that. Passionate. I got to earn a living.
Yeah.
I don't have to
it's
like
perspective.
I don't have to like what I do. They're going to give me money.
Yeah.
That's reason enough for doing it.
What a thought. So that's the thing is, like, I find that the most successful people are genuinely the most grateful as well, for the most part,
Sometimes, and then sometimes not. Yes.
Sometimes not. Correct. But listen, Gene, it's been an absolute pleasure. Really enjoyed this conversation. Where do you want the people to go and follow you, buy tickets? Like, where are we going? What are we putting in the show notes?
Go to genesimmons.com. Done.
That's it? genesimmons.com. That's the one source there?
And if you want to buy stuff, go to shop.genesimmons.com.
Okay, great. Will do. Fantastic conversation, Gene. It was really good chatting with you. Like I said, I was really looking forward to it. What a fascinating life and career you've had. It's been phenomenal, and looking forward to seeing what's next for you.
I wish you well.
Take the rest of the day off. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.